Upbeat intro music starts at... Oh. So we will have intro music coming soon. So get ready for that. We have somebody working on that. It's exciting. Welcome to the Valley of Spirits, where we dive into Azeroth's finest moments and occasionally remember to feed our battle pets. I'm Jordan, here with my trusty co-host Nick, and together we're your guides through the labyrinths of pixels, epic loot, and slightly confusing hotfixes.
And let's not forget the game updates. A big one, the Brawlers Guild's coming back post-War Within expansion. More ways for casual players to get into the endgame content, plus a bunch of hotfixes from dungeon tweaks to NPC cheer-ups. Seriously, Thomas Bright needed it.
Right, wasn't very Thomas Bright, was he? Stick around as we delve deeper into our adventures, guild antics, and the latest from Blizzard. This is the Valley of Spirits, where the past meets the present, and sometimes we remember to log out before maintenance. I guess I'll kick us off with our weeks in WoW. So I'll start with Classic, and I almost completely forgot about this mode this week. Three-tail being the week that everybody gets their fourth set piece if you didn't loot it already. The Mop Remix came out. I think this is probably the first time I've thought about Classic this week, to be honest with you. With rating, I did my usual 3 LFRs. It was a bit smoother, chiller groups. Could be because everyone who didn't get a set last week did this week, and they were a lot stronger. Or they listened to our last episode, and people were more chill. Either way, people were waiting for people to pull bosses. People were walking people through the mechanics, and it was a much better show than last week. And we pugged normal this week. We'll talk a little bit more about it later. And then I did do some time walking leveling, but I honestly, with the new Panda remix come out, I haven't touched any keys at all. No zeros or keys. Got my Demon Hunter up a couple of levels in the time walking dungeons, but that's really all I did with them. And then I did an awful lot with the Panda remix, but we'll be getting into that later. So Nick, what did you get into this week?
Well, Classic fell to the wayside as well for me. Didn't really do anything, mainly because I forgot about it after Panda Remix dropped. Retail, I ended up pushing my Holy Paladin like a squirrel on crack up to 65, so 5 more levels and then I start getting it geared. I'm looking to try to get it as geared as possible before the next expansion comes out. Obviously, I'm still going to use the Ret Pele as my main, but I want the Holy just to heal. And with the stat priority changes being 2 different, I just wanted to run 2 of them. I did go mount hunting in Northrend to get the additional mounts from the Argent tournament. Sadly, that's going to take longer than I thought it was going to be, but it's going to be a fun ride. I just want to get more Paladin mounts. For dungeons, I focused on the required time walking quest for the main, and then pushed the rest of it over to my Holy Paladin for leveling, which is how I got it up so quick. Jordan, what did the guild do this week?
Well, we did a little bit with the guild. The normal, like I said, went really, really smooth. We ended up pugging with just a couple of guildies that we're in. We actually were able to join a group with 5 of us, which was pretty impressive. They were actually doing a guild run. It was on Tuesday, so they were well prepared, and we're running it from beginning to end. And we had a lot of fun. I think it took us like an hour and a half to get through it at most.
Something like that, yeah. It was great though. Like I loved it.
It was. I got finally a set piece drop, even though I already converted to it. So thank you.
A little bit of a waste. Or that
LFR.
That one boss that we downed that had 4 of the same item.
Yeah.
It was a pole arm.
4 pole arms. He dropped 4 pole
like
arms.
2 people in the entire raid could get it.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. I even talked about it. I was like, what? I had to check the loot, what the loot was on. I almost didn't believe it. Never seen that before. 4 of the same item dropped off an LFR boss, or off a normal boss, excuse me. So for the LFR, we got a couple of the guildies together. We have a new tank who's coming up, and so we were able to walk him through Vault of the Incarnates, a little bit of the swaps in that, where you place the boss. LFR isn't the most challenging thing out there, but it was really cool to have everybody be so patient, let us walk through the tanks. Everybody was waiting for food buff. It was surprisingly courteous for LFR. Yeah, he downed everything. Never seen the raid before, so impressive. It was pretty cool. So do you have anything you want to add to the guild? I think I covered most of the bases there. We didn't do a whole lot.
No, we didn't do a bunch, but no, you got the basics of it. And it was a great week for us too. Like just getting out there and doing the raids alone was great. And helping some guildies come up in LFR and learn the fight, so that way when we go into it as a guild, that he knows it.
So Vault wasn't the most tank-involved raid, but he did kill it, never seeing it before. I think we covered most of what we wanted to talk about with the guild. We didn't do a whole lot. But, Nick, if we're moving on to game updates, you want to get us rolling with those?
Yeah, all right, game updates. The Associate Director, Maria Hamilton, and Executive Producer, Holly Longdale, discussed in an interview Blizzard's plan to revamp the Brawlers Guild sometime after the War Within expansion launches. They're trying to do this so that way it helps the more casual players in the WoW community to participate in the endgame content, since they felt like they have been lackluster in that area. So that way it's a little less focused for just hardcore when it comes to the end content player. All right, moving into hot fixes. We have a lot. There's been 4 days of hot fixes, and I think there was a couple more that we aren't even going to cover. Dungeons. The Azure Vault had the time requirement for reaching 2 and 3 chests on Mythic Keystone difficulty being set lower than intended. For items, a retroactive fix for veteran and champion track items obtained from outdoor activities should now be eligible for conversion at the Revival Catalyst. In addition, they are now also eligible for socket upgrades. Conquest and War Mode PvP gear was incorrectly displaying item level increases on the UI. Mount hotfixes. The Restorum of Transformation had a hotfix for a level 70 requirement to use it. We actually had a guildie earlier this week figure this out and get a workaround inside the guild going, which was all you had to do is visit a barber. For some reason, it counted as the change when you had to go change your dragon when you first learned dragon flying. Yep. When it comes to NPCs, Thomas Bright has been cheered up. He was feeling a little down. Yennefer has managed to wash off the strange gray paint and has also changed her eye color. She is a properly striped feline again.
A lot of these are aesthetic, yeah.
Yeah. Melceria? What is that? Melrissa?
That's a good one. Let's see.
Melcira? Melcira? I don't fucking know. Jesus. Copy, paste it into something.
Melcira? I don't even know.
Is there like a speaker thing?
I think it's Melcisra.
Yeah, we'll go with that. Melcisra fell back asleep and found their way back to the central encampment in the Emerald Dream. Players can continue with their renowned quests.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You can still do your rep. Thanks,
You
Blizzard.
can do that again. Newsly was slow retrieving mail, but has had a successful trip to the postmaster in Dalaran, allowing players to return to Loam and continue their renowned quests. Alaria and Umbric are now always present, as expected, for quest completion. So, mainly, it's a lot of aesthetic fixes, but 2 that just let you go do your rep.
Yeah, some that actually let you play the game. Cool.
Right. It's great when that happens. That's what I'd pay $15 a month for. For quests, Troll Heritage questline cosmetics were fixed. There was a bug preventing the cosmetic sword to appear for characters who completed the quest line but couldn't use it. This appearance should now be in your collection. Trading post, multiple completion of time walking dungeons now properly count toward the associated trading post activity. For WoW Remix and Pandaland, players who did not have Dragonflight can now learn Dragonflying from Lord Andastras. This was unintended by Blizzard to have this happen. So you were supposed to do this at the start.
Yeah, you were
Thanks for fixing it.
Yeah, you're supposed to actually not need Dragonflight in order for Dragonflying to work. That was the intention.
Cataclysm Classic. Guildmaster rank permissions panel is fixed. There was an issue with missing text providing the GM with information on if the rank was considered an officer rank. Roach Coach is now completable. An issue causing cockroach cabins to be uninteractable has been fixed. Would you like some flies with that? Is also not completable. Another issue preventing players from interacting with required objects has been fixed. Dark Moon Fair has been set to open from May 26th to June 1st. When queuing through Random Dungeon Finder, players will now be placed in the correct spot when going into Strathhole Main Gate. Kind of works that way, or it should at least.
Yeah, there's a lot of...
I like to start at the start of the dungeon, not the back of it.
True. Yeah, there's a couple of things that make this feel a little rushed. But
Exhaustion, Seated, and Temporal Displacement will now be cleared from pets when they are cleared from their masters.
All cleanse is on pets now. Let's go.
Yep. Pandaland Remix. Bronze caches have been increased by 25%. This was a response to the ending of the frog farming for timeless coins, which you could use to increase the amount of bronze earned during the farming. You'd take the timeless coin and it would get turned into bronze. Minor bronze caches went from 200 to 250. Lesser bronze caches went from 400 to 500. Bronze caches went from 600 to 750. Greater bronze caches went from 1,000 to 1,250. A hotfix was applied to high-level bosses that were accidentally dealing double the damage to some players. Blizzard does appreciate the reports and feedback they have been receiving from this. They said it, not I. Another fix Blizzard provided was the ability to log out into our characters. Some players had issues being locked out of their characters in the remix. Thanks for letting me play the game, guys.
No,
Jordan,
I heard
would you
about
like
that.
to tell
There's
us
some
about
remix characters were just stuck in character limbo.
Oh, God.
Like,
Jordan, would you like to tell us about the coming week?
I will touch on the week. So, the Cataclysm Classic official expansion goes live on May 20th. They're going to let you loose. We're back into the world of PvP power and PvP resilience, and the beginning of LFR, and the Dragon Soul, and all that great, great fun stuff. I do think I'm going to be diving into it at some point, but I definitely have some other things on my plate first. So going to holidays, retail, we have the Glowtop Festival, and this Glowtop Festival takes place on May 27th at Sprogar and Zangermarsh in the Outland. You'll see a red cross at the location on the Outland and Zangermarsh maps. And so, what's the point of it? Why are we doing it? Well, it essentially comprises of a healing minigame for all classes, not just the healers, that allows for some easy farming of the Sporgar reputation. And so this is, if you're still trying to get together on your BC reputation, this is an enormous time to be able to cheese that up real quick. So the events, we talked a little bit about this earlier. The PvP Brawl Gravity Laps will be beginning. So this one I always think is a little bit interesting. I don't think it's quite exciting enough. Having no gravity and floating around like you have slow fall it doesn't really change it up all that much. Some of it, the positioning can be interesting because if you jump and you fly really far away, then obviously you won't be able to heal your buddies or whatever. So it almost becomes the don't jump simulator. And so I'm not super excited for it really. The gravity laps I think is kind of silly. But the other PvP quest will be the Arena Skirmish bonus event, which means lots of skirmies. Get to bring your buddies along, get them some honor gear. Doesn't matter if you win or lose.
We're going to have to go through that.
We do have to do some skirmies next week for sure.
Bad.
Or this coming up week. Starting today when this gets posted. So going over the affixes for this week, we have Tyrannical, Volcanic, and Sanguine. And we're going to read them over, and then I'll go over a couple of potential strategies to help deal with them. So Tyrannical is bosses have 30% more health. Bosses and their minions inflict up to 15% more damage. So this isn't the Fortified week. What that means is bosses are going to be tough. They're going to deal more damage. This comes only with a keystone, so 2s and up. This is the primary affix you'll be dealing with going through keys.
So just so I understand this too, when it says the minions inflict 15% increased damage, that's all mobs in it, or is it specific like characters in the dungeon?
Nope, minions are specifically talking about the ads that the boss will spawn, for example.
Okay.
So when he says minions, that'll be like a warlock summons a minion.
Yeah.
So like a boss would summon a minion, for example.
All right, I just want to clarify because I want to make sure I understood it properly.
Yep, so essentially across all boss fights, 15% increased damage, and they have 30% more health. Trash is unaffected. Volcanic. While in combat, enemies periodically cause gouts of flame to erupt beneath their feet at what it says distant players. Inflicts fire damage to players within 2 yards equal to 20% of their maximum health and knocks them high into the air. So you have 2 seconds, I believe it is, to get out of this circle you'll see under your feet. This is predominantly for ranged people. Second affix Volcanic only happens at level 6 and up. And so Sanguine, when slain, non-boss enemies will leave behind a lingering pool of ichor that heals the allies and damages players. This heals creatures for 5% of their maximum health every 1 second, and damages players for 15% of their maximum health every 1 second.
I hate this one.
And so we're going to go over a couple of strategies to deal with it. Well, at least it's not Sanguine on Fortified Week. That's a gross combination.
Yes, oh god.
Tyrannical is pretty straightforward. It's the bosses are tough week. It's not like Trash is going to be something you can totally ignore. You want to make sure you're not pulling all the way to the first boss necessarily, but you don't have to worry about it like you did last week. Biggest thing is remember bosses are going to be tough. You're going to be lusting on certain fights during bosses this week because they will take long enough and they will be tough enough. Volcanic is a ranged punishing affix. Expect your casters to drop some casts and lose some DPS because of Volcanic. Generally speaking, it doesn't really affect the melee or tanks as long as you're within a certain distance from the mob. For example, if you have split packs, it would be equally possible for the melee to get Volcanic to spawn, assuming that you are outside of melee range of some of the mobs. So this affix only appears at 6+. So if you are a Demon Hunter, for example, sometimes you'll get Volcanic because you'll leave within direct vicinity of the boss. And on some bosses, that does not necessarily mean melee range. It means a certain undefined distance. So just keep in mind as a melee, if you want to avoid volcanic, stay pretty close to the mob. So Sanguine is the tricky one. Fortunately, this only happens on keys 10 and higher. But none of the dungeons are super duper bad with Sanguine. We don't have like a Waycrest Manor where you're stuck inside tiny hallways trying to kite this around.
That's my favorite dungeon, though. What are you talking about? It's amazing.
It's not my favorite dungeon on Sanguine. The important thing to remember is as tanks, they're going to be moving the mobs a lot. They're going to be doing everything they possibly can to try and make sure that these mobs do not stay in this circle on the ground. It'll be red circle. The tanks will be doing their best to make sure that the mobs do not stay in this red circle. So you'll see them moving the mobs around a lot. So DPS, the big thing you got to remember here is don't CC the stuff in the Sanguine. Because if the tank can't pull it out, then it heals. And then don't stand in it yourself because it hurts. It's not like a flat damage. It says 15% of their maximum health every 1 second. And so it is a flat, very hurt, very, very bad. So Sanguine is definitely the most punishing of the affixes this week. But unless you're doing 10s up and trying to get your portals or something, or your teleports or something like that, not super relevant. We had a couple of Cataclysm Classic class changes we wanted to go over. Nick, do you want to take me up on those?
PvE class changes are mainly Cataclysm focused. So starting off with Mage, Focus Magic was being used when the talent point for it was not spent. This has been corrected, so sadly, no more free spells from the talent tree. Whomp whomp. Living Bomb has been reset to how the spell worked in the original Cataclysm. It will no longer trigger Ignite. Dispelling Ignite would increase the damage done from future Ignites. This issue has also been fixed. Rolling on to Shaman, Flame Tongue Totem will no longer provide a stack with other spell power increasing effects. Healing Stream Totem now benefits from the Shaman Restoration Mastery ability, Deep Healing. Going to Warlock, Drain Life will no longer continue to turn targets permanently green until they log out. I, too, would also be tired of everything I kill being green on the ground. Warlock Molten Core talent now correctly states the reduced casting time by 10, 20, and 30% at 1, 2, and 3 talent points. Rogue, a 14-year-old bug where deadly momentum that caused its increase a critical chance to be consumed by auto attacks that did not benefit from that increased chance. That has
at least finally got
fixed,
to it, yeah.
Right? I'm just curious if how long and how noticeable it was, even in Cataclysm, like the OG Cataclysm when it was original content.
I bet you this was because some forum post, some guy was like, Blizzard, 14 years, please.
Please, my rogue still sucks. Warrior, Deep Wounds will now be reduced by effects that reduce damage taken by a percentage. Hunter, the Ancient Hysteria effect from Hunter Core Hound pets will now clear properly after encounters end. Jordan, what do you think about all these PvE class changes in Cataclysm Classic?
I think it's cool that they are finally fixing 14-year-old bugs. And
me too. I think that's great.
There's a lot of things that are working as intended, which is good. A couple of these are pretty exciting. Unfortunately, mages deal with it. You don't get free spells from the tree. Seems like a lot of good fixes. They're definitely focusing on everything they're releasing. So something I wanted to talk about is the Arena World Cup Season 4. So going into this, just something to keep in mind is I am super, super biased for anyone who plays Preservation Evoker, okay? So just keep that in mind as we go forward.
Why? It's a horrible class.
You're a horrible class. So Europe. Echo won as I hoped and expected. I love their MDI team. I've loved their players. I wanted Echo to win EU, which they did. However, I was very nervous about Chibaku Tensei. They're very good, very flexible motherfuckers. But Echo pulled it out. A couple of nail biters along the way, but they definitely squeezed it out.
It was so good to watch it, though.
Yeah, both sides were good.
Yes.
So on the United States side, I've always had a soft spot for Draco Cleave. They showed the world that a Cleave comp can work. And they also run the Preservation Evoker Cleave with
Which is why you really like them now.
You're right, one of my favorites. And they know how to patch some shit together after it doesn't work. Like, they at least drop tons of damage, and they stick to the strategy. But they are kind of one trick, so ultimately they're going to get counterpicked and things like that, which I think is what ultimately killed them in the gauntlet. They didn't make it into the finals or anything like that. They got killed in the gauntlet.
Womp womp.
So about the rest of the USA tournament, I normally always vote for the move. I've been a huge fan of the move. I like Peekaboo IRL. Always cracks me up. His stream, I watch him do arenas, or it was super cool watching him during the Plunder Storm. But ultimately, I'm a fan of Sea-Doo. I've seen that man do some inhuman things this year in general on all the on both Season 3 and Season 4 Arena World Cups. The man is rescuing people from across the map. He is holding an Emerald Communion for the absolute dire straits. He does 80 to 90,000 damage per second. So I ended up becoming a very, very big fan of Liquid. And ultimately, it was pretty cool to see the move and Liquid fight it out, for sure.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the Liquid pulled it out, but that was a really, really good fight. I normally am not the biggest fan of one tricks, but the move has even shown that they can use multiple comps this year. Because Peekaboo used a Demon Hunter in one of those runs, in the last one, which he's normally always rogue. So pretty exciting. That was my recap from the Arena World Cup. Ultimately, who wins these is who's the most flexible and who can counterpick. Who knows the most classes, ultimately. And Liquid and Echo came out again, which is, I guess, to be expected, right?
Right.
So, Nick, what are we doing after this? What are we talking about? What's next on the list?
Well, we're moving to the big new thing on the block, the remix of the Panders, or Pandaland as I call it. Jordan, do you want to head us off with this? Because I know you've been just dying about this since the news came out about it.
I am. Ever since I heard about this, I've been super excited.
It's all we've talked about while we play since we heard it was coming out, pretty much. And I know that once he started this, it was just everything else fell to the wayside. It's only Pandaland.
Non-stop Pandamonium, for sure.
Pandamonium, yeah, I like that.
I got to level 57 this week, and I've had just an absolute blast with it. I've been a bit of a trinket and gem hoarder, which you kind of have to be. It gives you such an enormous toolkit. You essentially have like 2 or 3 talent trees now. Is you can just adjust your build on the fly to be, if you want to be super bursty and super squishy, is you can take only mastery instead of taking the leech or the avoidance or armor, right? Or all of a sudden this guy's kicking your butt, so then you can switch to armor and stamina and all these other gems you can slide in there, or take defensive trinkets, for example. That would allow you to live longer when reduced below 20% health, heal this much, all kinds of stuff like that. Another cool part of it is you get to get spells from other classes. Fortunately for me, this was a little less jarring. I do think this is jarring for a new player, which we'll get into.
Yes. Holy crap. Especially just the amount of stuff you're getting every box. It's like, huh?
Yeah, it could be a bit overwhelming for sure. But the cool part of it is I really like Blink. And Blink is one of my favorite mobility spells in the game. And I got to use it on my Enhancement Shaman. So I get to use Blink to set up all my blasts, slow him, get all my dots on him, and then blink up and smack him in the face with my hammer. Like, it feels super good. And let's say you play a hunter and you decided to do a rogue or something this expansion, you can get disengage on your rogue, for example. So pretty exciting. Pretty crazy. There's all kinds of crazy builds, I'm sure, happening out there that I don't even know about. Now, one of my buddies mentioned that he thought the scaling was a bit off. Which, mind you, I only got to level 57. And from what I hear, most of this scaling problem comes from 60 to 70. Their idea with this, I imagine, was they wanted you to be able to use the most out of your trinkets. They expect you to have all your buffs going, like those buff scrolls going. They want you to make sure you're using the kind of trinkets that either CC the enemy. Like, they want you to do cheesy things to get through this stuff. Could it be a bit easier? Like, do you want to spend 60, 90 seconds on a mob intense fight to where it turns into being like a raid for hours? I don't know if it gets to that difficulty, which by the sounds of it, and based on the forum post that we'll get a little into later, it sounds like the scaling might be a little bit off. But since what I've experienced so far is the scaling's been fine, and the challenge has been, it's pretty easy to start off with, and it's starting to get decently challenging now. So, yeah, Nick, what's your first impressions?
I started the Pandaland remix as soon as it dropped, pretty much. I did start as a hunter because I was like, I want to try something with range for a change. Still don't like it. It's too strange. I'm very much used to just smacking something and using the light, so I stuck with something close to that, and I ended up changing to an outlaw rogue. I've been leveling that decently. Gotten to around 30 in the few days it's been around. I have enjoyed the content so far. I think it's great being able to use a dragon flying in Pandaland, just being back in the old content. I absolutely love the amount of trinkets that we get. I think it's really cool how we're able to just kind of really break a class, I guess is a way to put it.
Yeah, mix and match.
Oh yeah, well I can like you said, the disengage. I have that on my rogue. I have 2 or 3 things that I never thought a rogue could do on my rogue because they're slotted in my armor. I also love how the cloak works. To me, it gets a P cool rating. I like how it's a trinket, but it fully levels all the way up and then continues to expand as you play. And it's going to stick with you as it transfers into retail. I'm often leveling so fast too that I'm at the point where I keep thinking to myself, I got to be doing something wrong, because stuff doesn't die as quick as it used to, and then I hit the end button and I'm like, oh right, I have like 7 unspent talent points. Like, so it's good so far. I absolutely love it. Jordan, I think there was something that we found that you wanted to hit on too for the real homies.
Yes, yeah, I want to do a shout out to brother Andrew. That's all we know about him is his name's Andrew. Definitely go. You can look up a little bit more on his account, and you can buy him a coffee if you look on the website. But he made this website called remixchecklist.com.
We'll put it in the description.
We will put it in the description, yep. And so this is essentially a comprehensive HTML list that you can just check the boxes of the stuff you've got. And it utilizes cookies in your browser to remember what you checked. And if you'll notice as you visit this website, there's absolutely no advertisements on it. This guy bought the domain and is hosting this website for free just so we have a checklist to click on our stuff, which I think is really, really cool. I'm really impressed.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, having the ability to track everything and see what the prices are going to be before you have to go sit at vendors and figure it out, it's great. It's just a little trick tip thing that you can use.
Yeah, it's really exciting. It's just cool to be. Just remember, we are part of one of the smartest communities, one of the smartest video game communities for sure. So really nice. Thank you, Andrew, for what you're doing. If you're listening, I appreciate it. So moving forward, now that we have talked about homie Andrew, so comparisons to Season of Discovery and Better or Worse. So, Nick, you didn't play a whole lot of Season of Discovery, I didn't think?
No, I was going to say, this is pretty much your go because I didn't play anything of Season of Discovery. I was focused on everything else going on at the time.
And so I'll just cover it real quickly because Season of Discovery is still going on, and they imagine they're going to have a Phase 5 here coming up at some point. But I like that they are essentially giving you almost everything through these random loot chests. There could be... I'll get into this a little bit, maybe into the off-the-rails talk. We'll get into the a little bit more into this. Because you do lose some when you just get chests for everything. When you do a final quest, you don't get like your super cool chest piece or a weapon, or you just get another chest, right? So the significance of quests isn't really as cool. But we'll get into that maybe at the end, during the off-the-rails. What they did in Season of Discovery is you had to do certain specific quests. So they didn't really give you the best breadcrumbs to get to these quests. So you essentially had to look up on Wowhead how to get your rune to make your build good, so that way you were relevant and could actually join the dungeon or whatever. Like if you wanted to be a mage healer, you had to go get specific runes to make sure that you could be a mage healer. They tried maybe a little bit of a different approach. These trinkets are not exactly runes. They're a little bit lighter. They're not class-changing abilities. They won't fundamentally change how your class works. However, there are additional abilities and buffs that will make your class better in different kinds of ways. And so instead of making you do specific kinds of quests to go get these, they just hand these things to you in these chests. They just keep dumping it. You essentially get a roll for a trinket every time you open a chest. So eventually you're going to get a lot of them and a lot of choices. I do think they need to make sure there's good bad luck protection to where eventually everybody's going to get all of them, right, at some point. Or if you accidentally sell one, you can get it again in case it ends up being a good one, for example. But it's definitely much better than making us do a specific set of quests to go get a rune. So about the concept in general, Nick, why don't you start us here with how we feel about the concept? What do you think they're trying to do here? What do you think? How do you just feel about the concept in general?
I like the concept of just being able to explore the old content again without the drag of retail leveling. For instance, there is a vast difference between Battle for Azeroth leveling and Wrath of the Lich King. This is 2 expansions after the Lich King, and I've gone through it and attempted to level in retail. I've always ended up back in BFA, but this makes it fun and it's quick if it's not faster than BFA, and it adds such an increased amount of differentiation with all the gems and trinkets and stuff that we get. So, and I enjoy opening the boxes as well and seeing what I get out of them. then trying to see what the new abilities are from these things. I'm also excited to hit this game content and just see how the dungeons and raids go with all this crazy gear, because so many people are getting all these extra trinkets that just do things as they attack. So it'll be a vastly different change, I think, when we get to dungeons and raids, and I'm really excited to see it. Jordan, what about you? What do you think about this concept in general?
Yeah, when we get to dungeons and raids, it's definitely going to be a madhouse. There's going to be shamans blinking. There's going to be rogues disengaging. There's going to be... It's going to be a madhouse. I can't wait. I can't wait. So what I ultimately think they're trying to do here is they're trying to figure out where they can put these trinkets or runes in retail. They obviously have to find a balance because the classes already have a lot of usable abilities and button bloat, and things like this only add more. And it's very, very overwhelming to the new player to have all these things piled in. So on top of this, I imagine if this was a retail experience, there would be a meta. If you are a shaman, you have to get this trinket. And so with how many of them there are, it's going to take a long time to roll all these and get these things. And there will be min-maxers out there that'll be simming the trinkets, and there will be websites showing you which one's the best. But the problem with bringing something like this to retail is you introduce more button bloat. And so what if we just put on these trinkets and don't even use them? What if our in-class abilities are just better than using these trinkets?
Or you forget about it.
Either. Right. And then the other thing is, well, now if you make the trinkets too good, then you have to have this specific set of trinkets to be relevant. So there's a balance here. And so this is a bit of their trial run to see what they can do with it. Because they've done a lot of things like locking the stats to only certain pieces. You get cogwheel for others, which is like utility. You only get meta gems on your helmet, for example. They've done a lot of stuff to mitigate the button bloat and keep it under control, but I still think it's too bloated. Like, we have so many abilities in this game right now, and this just adds more to it.
Oh yeah, it adds more to it, and like you said, are things that you get going to be better or worse than what your class already has standard? And I'll be honest, there's times where I forget about I think the cogwheel trinkets are the ones that give you the extra buttons that, like, as you apply
the utility,
them, they expand,
mobility normally.
I forget I have those sometimes.
And so let's think about why this could be really, really cool, though. Like, the biggest thing you and I complain about, well, mostly me, you tell me to play Paladin. But the thing I complain about the most
it's so much better than Warrior ever will be. You can read.
You don't need to read where we're going. And so something you could do is imagine you had the cleanse cogwheel trinket, and I could run that on my warrior on afflicted weeks. So now all of a sudden I have a cleanse as a warrior. So there are some really cool concepts here. I don't know if that's because you ultimately are making every class a cookie cutter experience. So there should be certain classes that don't have cleanses, for example, or certain classes that don't have battle reses or things like that, right? Not everybody can have everything in the tool set. Like, Warrior has a ton of raid buffs. Like, I can just increase everybody's health by 30%. Like, no Paladin can do anything like that, so...
I can heal myself repeatedly.
Well, right. But we all have quirks, right? And that's important to keep the differentiality of the game.
Yep.
And so, yeah, they have to find balance, because ultimately you're going to have to turn everything into this cookie cutter if they let everybody do everything. I just think there's some cool play there.
Yeah, and you're right. Absolutely, but they've also pretty much have done that over time too, as a slight cookie cutter effect. Because if you remember back in like Classic, there were things that classes like just could not do that. Now everybody kind of has the mobility and stuff like that.
There's a balance to this, and so of course Blizzard has never had any problems with balancing. I'm sure they'll nail it the first time if they ever decide to bring this to retail, right, Nick?
Yes, it will be perfect out of the box, no issues, no 14-year-old bug fixes.
Nope, nothing like that. Nothing. Like, Rogue's been totally fixed for 14 years. So what are we excited to experience from this, Nick? Do you want to start or do you want me to start?
Go for it.
Well, I can't wait to go through all the raids. I talk about this. I'm a big raid guy. I want to go through Mogashan Vaults. I want to see Heart of well, only kinda. I mean, Bug Raid, right? Terrace of the Endless Spring is cool. It's pretty short, but it's cool. And then Siege of Orgrimmar is insane. It's actually, I think it's pretty good raid as long as you leave Garrosh out of it. Garrosh was a little bit tedious and long. I kind of thought the dungeons were lame, but this was before the dungeons had like Mythic Plus. So I'm excited to kind of see what these mechanics were, what it would be like if these dungeons were relevant. Like, I don't know exactly what they're doing with post-game, but I've decided not to spoil it for myself or look too much into it, so I'll definitely keep you posted with my experience through it. But that's what I'm looking forward to rating, for sure. What are you waiting for, Nick?
I'm pretty much in the same spot. I'm excited to do the dungeons and raids because I haven't really done them in the content at all. I've done the time walking dungeons when it comes to Pandaland when it is in the time walking section, but other than that, I haven't done anything else really inside Pandaland. I've tried doing the leveling on it when I bring up a retail character. I get bored of it in the Jade Valley, and I'm like, I'm just gonna go do BFA. It's quick and easy. So I'm excited for the whole thing. I'll be honest. It sounds dumb, like I don't have a real. I'm excited for this one thing. No, I just never played it really. I'm excited to actually experience it, even with these quirks going on.
Definitely. There's a lot to be learned about this Panda expansion. I'm sure there will be a whole nother page full of hotfixes for us next week, for sure. All right, so Nick, I don't think I missed any of the notes, right? That was all.
No,
right?
We've covered the entire document. We're good. All the notes have been done.
So, Tavern Talk?
Tavern Talk time. So, something I wanted to talk about, Jordan, is with this Panda remix, do you think that they're going to use this again? The remix it is, not just Pandaland. But, for instance, we have Classic, Classic Hardcore, Cataclysm Classic, and Retail to play. They just brought out, the Plunder Storm and now this remix. Do you think they're going to use these again? Maybe. Plunder Storm, it was fun, but I'm not a huge fan of that style. I love this Panda remix, though. Do you think they'll use that for, say, this expansion after the War Within, before it drops, kind of how they're doing it here, and then maybe not just in Panda, but go to Northrend or go to Classic and do it, which is what they're doing already, but same sense.
Well, I think this is the fundamental thing to remember here is this is a bit different. Like, this isn't a classic rendition. This is a remix. And so I would be excited to do, like, a classic remix, right? Go through the entire classic expansion at an accelerated level pace, get trinkets and shit throughout it, level up, drag and ride around it. It wouldn't be as pretty as Pandaria. I know why they let us drag and ride in Pandaria.
Oh, yeah.
If you fly around it in a few minutes, it's gorgeous.
Northrend is kind of big, open, and sad, too, at spots.
Yeah, but it's cool. I did the Northrend Cup. We talked about that last week.
Yeah. No, that was a good experience.
It was fun. It's so cool to fly around the mountains of Northrend, for sure.
Right, but the Cup's going to place you in places where it's going to be a challenge, dragon riding, so it makes it more fun, I think, than, like, what is it, the Boring Tundra, where you start, it's kind of flat and boring.
Boring Tundra is a little rough.
It's the Boring Tundra.
It's still better than, what's the first place you go through when you go into Outlands? The very Hellfire Peninsula? Yeah,
no,
Hellfire
I think the whole
Peninsula.
thing's Hellfire Peninsula, isn't it?
No, I think that's just the zone you go in. That's where the Dark Portal is.
Oh, okay.
But I definitely see them doing, like, a Warlords of Draenor remix, where same thing, you go through the leveling, you go through the raids and dungeons, and I think they're going to learn from something like this. Ultimately, this is kind of like a PTR that everybody can play, essentially. They get to play around with the idea of trinkets in retail.
An ungodly amount of trinkets.
Well, that's why they just opened the gates.
I know.
They just opened the floodgates of loot. They said, here, bitches, try this thing and this thing.
Here's everything. Have fun.
Yeah, literally.
Watch, this is all a test to make a new class.
Well,
it's a joke.
Do they want 14? They don't pay attention to the ones they have enough.
Wow.
So I don't think they need another one. As they were just talking about on the AWC, actually, this pissed me the fuck off, actually.
What?
They were talking about on the AWC, who plays Evoker? It's like half of the damn fucking AWC competition did. That pissed me off. I don't want to talk about who said it, but...
Who plays Evoker? It's a useless class.
I guess, yeah, right?
You don't bring that to raids at all. Like, it doesn't help at all.
Yeah, it doesn't pull 90k damage and 180k heals in arenas time and time again.
It's a good class. When you get it down, it's good.
No, I was pretty upset to hear that. Well, maybe she. Well, dang it, that kind of gives it away. But maybe the announcer should play some more classes and get off her paladin or whatever.
Well, and I guess here's the question too: are the announcers actually playing the game, or do they just know the game?
The casters, like the straight up shoutcasters during the game, definitely.
Oh, okay.
I don't always agree with their opinions on stuff, but they definitely play the game a lot.
Okay.
Some of the personalities in between are hit and miss, I think. But it'll get better with time. So I do see them using this remix in other ways. I just think there's a bit more hype. They utilized the fact that everybody was like, oh, well, of course they're doing Cataclysm Classic. Well, I'm just going to wait until they do Panda Classic. And a lot of people said that.
Yeah. So you think they're just kind of doing this in order to get the Panda Classic through in a way?
Well, yeah, because the truth is I don't know if I'm going to be as excited about a Draenor remix. I mean, probably. Like,
I don't know.
this
I've never
concept
played
is
Draenor
cool.
either, so I'd get into that.
So I don't know. It's up to Blizzard at this point. I mean, I'd be down. I'm going to try it. I tried most of their modes at this point. So.
Right. I mean, I've tried pretty much everything they've put out with, everything they've been doing the last couple months to a year. And it's all been good. They haven't let me down yet.
So I guess I don't really have a whole lot I want to bring up for the Off the Rails. I'm just going to, I guess I'll talk about what my plans are for next week a little bit. My biggest thing is I need to kill Sarkareth, and I'm going to try and kill Sarkareth on every difficulty if I can help it, to get the legendary on my evoker, because I am sick of not having it. I am done not having it. I am ready to have it.
Please,
and
Blizzard,
so
drop it.
I will have it, and it will hopefully be next week.
Did you do your sacrifice for the coming week so you can receive it?
I did. I already put the blood on the collector's edition and burnt it. I've already done it. And I hopefully will get my legendary. We're going to try and see who in the guild wants to go through the heroic. That'll be pretty exciting, I think.
Yes.
As I think a couple of us are definitely ready. And I think a
Definitely.
couple of us are going to get ready real fast. So
Gonna learn today.
And so I think it'll be pretty cool. I always had, some of the fights are kind of annoying. After doing Vault of the Incarnates for a week, I'm ready to be back on Aberrus.
Yes.
Fights are a lot less annoying.
Oh, God. Yeah, that spider one.
Yeah, and then the council fight, and there's the lightning on the pillars, and the taking the lava damage for the ice. We're done. We're done. It's done soon. Soon we will be on to Aberrus week.
Woo!
So yeah, big legendary grind. After that, I'm going to try and see if I can get this one's a little bit more of a pipe dream, but I would like to get the legendary on my warrior. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, that's, you really need to put the crack pipe down and step away from it.
A crack pipe.
Because
well, how am I
I
supposed to
also
play
have that
warrior
dream.
without my crack.
I also have that dream for my paladin, but I don't think it's going to happen.
I know, the crack just makes the damage work.
It just makes my face roll on the keyboard harder.
I don't even feel the keys on my face.
Ow, my W's stuck in my nose.
It doesn't matter. Keep rolling. Keep rolling.
Because what was my paladin show? Oh, yeah, I just stick my mouth in my mouth and go, rah, rah, rah. Because everything's hotkeyed to my mouse.
I press all the buttons.
Just chew on the mouse. It'll be okay.
So we'll see. I got to play more retail. I would have more to talk about if I didn't spend so much time leveling in Pandaria, honestly, in my bliss.
I think even half the time you spent in Pandaria alone was in the Valley of No, Jade Forest. Why am I
Yeah,
blanking
the Jade
on it?
Forest. I did every quest in the Jade Forest. And I already have Lore Master of Pandaria on another character that I got back in 2014.
I don't know why.
I
you're
just
going
did it
that hard.
again because I wanted to.
Well, you said you were focused too on the
The lore.
what is the dragon not dragon riding, the serpent.
Oh, well, I've been doing those, the Cloud Serpent dailies,
Yeah.
but I did that before, too. I just like raising my little serpent, and you see him turn into a little teenager serpent. I think it's just adorable.
Did it for the nostalgia.
I did. I played this like 10 years ago, literally. So so I've been playing it again. It's cool now that especially that I'm a little bit better at the game, or have a little bit of a better mindset playing the game now. I'm enjoying it a bit more, reading about the Hosen, actually learning about Storm Stout Brewery, reading the Vulcan book, and getting excited about Chen and Lili.
Well, it gets you so much more involved in the content to be able to A, read it, and then B, sit down and read the quests you're doing and kind of dig into it. Because I know I've done that, where I just go, what am I doing here? And then I'll start reading lore about everything in the area and the people I'm working with. And I'm like, oh, this is actually pretty sweet.
Right, or funny. Sometimes they'll just do funny stuff.
Yeah, like I love it when they add in the kind of haha stuff too. Like,
Yeah.
what's the one panda that is basically a redneck and everybody else is pretty like...
Mud Mug.
Yeah,
Brother
yes.
Mud Mug. Like, well, shit, I told you I could carry all 3 barrels. Yep. Here,
It's
hold my
completely
beer.
different than everybody else. I love it.
No, he's one of my favorites. Well, he's like, and I almost put a tear to my eye when Shem Stormstout was like, "That's okay, Mud Mug. You are family." It's like, and he's like, "Well, she." Howdy, partner. I don't know.
Oh God.
He cracks me up. So there's a lot of good stuff to it. And so speaking of lore, Nick, you actually are preparing a little bit of a bonus something for us. Did you want to talk about that a little bit during this freeform section?
Yep. So we've talked about it, you and I have, and we want to start doing lore episodes. But I've been working on one for Paladins specifically on how the class kind of came to be in Warcraft, just because there seems to be a lot more of that lore, and I want to expand on that, going to Arthas and a bunch of other avenues as well. So yeah, that's in process. We should hopefully have that out in the next couple weeks as a bonus episode. It's not going to replace our weekly content. We're going to keep doing every week the same way, but we'll sometimes drop lore episodes when Jordan or I finish it and we figure out the context we want to present it in.
Yeah, so it'll be a little bit of a trial run for sure. We've wanted to do, in fact, if you heard our first episode, we've been wanting to do this kind of lore thing since the beginning of the show. So
yes,
we're going to try and send it. We think this is the best context because it keeps our main cast super, super relevant about the game and what's going on in the game right now. And then that gives a bonus if you guys are really interested in, well, Paladins soon this week. And we also wanted to do that because we're a very, I mean, truth be told, we're a very Horde boy podcast.
Yeah.
And so starting with Paladins, I think, is very fair. We're going to talk about, some of the best warriors of the light. Well, yeah, and a lot of this is very relevant and very exciting for Alliance players.
Right. No, it is. And then, there's some cool things. I mean, the to break the history down of Paladins is basically the good, the bad, the ugly. In that ranking, it starts good, goes kind of bad, gets ugly. Like, it's cool. It's interesting. Because, I mean, one of the greatest adversaries we've had, Arthas, was a paladin.
Oh, he sure was. Nick will tell us a lot about that. We'll even learn a little bit about Nubarak, even, maybe.
Possibly, yep. And that's the thing, is it's going to be dependent on how deep you and I both want to go on the subjects we want to talk about. These aren't going to be, from my understanding, we haven't really discussed on an avenue to follow. We aren't going to start just doing the classes and then breaking out the characters that are those classes, like Uther the Lightbringer would be under the Paladin spectrum, so to speak. We aren't doing that. What we're going to do is just go, well, I just want to talk about Paladins. There's a ton of stuff I know about it. I'm just going to go start writing it, and then we're going to present it. Jordan, I was talking about wanting to do Scaleborn and a couple other books and lore about Dragonflight that brought it to be where we're at today.
Yeah, I want to do specifically for the lore heads out there, I was going to do an episode on Dawn of the Aspects and then War of the Scaleborn. Yes, chronologically, that's how they work. I also thought about putting that aside and saving that for later, and we could do like a War Crimes and a Vol'jin book, maybe, because Pandaland just came out.
Yeah.
So we could do something like that, because I've also read both those books, and there's a lot that gets covered in there, and how we transition into Draenor from it, and the bullshit that our favorite dragon, Rathian, causes. There's a reason why I was Team Sibelian, all right? And then Brother Abyssian, but I'll leave it at that. No spoilers, but Brother Abyssian.
It'll be good extra content we can provide to you, the listener, and we're hoping that you guys like it.
Yeah, so it's going to be a little bit of a trial run.
Yes.
Let us know how you guys like it, things you think we could add, things you think we could remove, things like that. It'll be a bonus thing, like I said, not going to interrupt our regular content, but something we're passionate about.
We want to keep focused to the game, but we're passionate more than just telling you guys about hotfixes and what's going on in the World of Warcraft. We're very passionate about the lore of it, too. I don't know how many times we sit around playing the game, debating lore, or even just characters and NPCs.
Talking about who they were and what they've done and why they're here.
Or how Anduin became an orphan. That sounded like you had so much joy in that.
Oh, man. It's all right.
Rock
That's
can
all
kill
right.
a queen.
They got theirs. We'll get ours. Don't worry.
We did get ours. Sylvanas is in the Maw, and Orgrimmar's had a siege. Where's my siege on Stormwind?
No, I mean, that's what I'm saying. We've got ours.
Oh.
We lost our capital. Theirs is coming.
I doubt it.
Well, anyway, I think we're good on that. Definitely let us know what you think, what you want us to add. And so, Nick, you want to send us off?
Yeah, definitely. This has been another episode of the Valley of Spirits with your hosts and favorite Horde players, Jordan and Nick. You can find us in Valdrakken on the Mal'Ganis server. You can find our guild by searching for the Electric Boogaloo. And as always, for the Horde.
For the Horde.